Hi there, I'm James Osborne, the co-founder of the Recruitment Network, and this is the TRN Podcast. Every week, we unpack the strategies, the technologies, the processes and mindsets fueling today's top-performing recruitment agencies. We take a look behind the scenes of some great recruitment businesses. We listen to the real-life stories of those who have built those businesses, and we learn from some of the industry's greatest thought leaders to help you become both future fit and future relevant. So let's begin with this next episode of the TRM Podcast. Felix, let's go straight into it. Can you, first of all, just introduce yourself? I always like to, people always say, like, you need to introduce your guests, and like, you know yourself better than I do. So give us a quick potted story, potted history of why I've probably invited you here today, and what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Felix Wetzel. I'm currently the VP Product Management at Cielo. And I guess why I'm here is because I've been working in HR tech for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. First with JobSite as a marketing director, then through different guises, working with Seracore, working with Pocket Recruiter, now as Clios, which is an AI matching software. Worked in-house as a talent acquisition director for Seracare. Mm-hmm. So that gave me a good insight. And now I'm focusing again a lot on building digital products and on generative AI. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I find it just fascinating of what's currently, the world is changing so fast. It reminds me a little bit when the internet started in 99, and now, but it's even more ferocious.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because we often talk about this period of time being like the internet boom, when LinkedIn first came out, on the job boards, etc. Mm-hmm. Is this another one of those moments? Is it the same? Do we know what happens next? Have we seen this movie before? Or is this a little bit different, do you think?
We will see the same kind of disruption. Mm-hmm. And I think we will see the disruption is going to be faster and more ferocious. We don't yet precisely know how it's going to play out. But I think what we can see is, like we saw a lot of change when job boards first came out. And we saw a lot of agencies coming from nowhere and really making a mark. Mm-hmm. And a lot of agencies struggling who stuck too long in the olden days. Yeah. And I think we will see the same thing again now with generative AI. I guess the more interesting thing for me with generative AI is like, what is the role of a recruiter going forwards? Because I think we will see a lot of self-service from hiring managers, a lot of self-service from candidates. And so what do you need the recruiter in the middle for?
Well, we were seeing that anyway, right? I mean, that was starting to happen. So if you look at some of the, I suppose, more of the transactional lower level recruitment, mm-hmm. that was becoming a little bit more self-serve. Yes. Anyway. So is this not just an evolution of what we were seeing anyway? Maybe fast track slightly with AI, I don't know, but.
No, I think it's going, I think where the big difference is, like when job boards and ATSs came out, we industrialized recruitment. Mm-hmm. And like you said, right, we just had blue collar recruitment and we just had like numbers and they were just kind of being pushed through it. What we're now going to see is much more a humanizing of recruitment again. So something that I believe we've lost over the last, since job boards and ATSs came about, when we forgot of what a recruiter really brings, what a candidate really wants, what a hiring manager really wants. And I think that's what we're now seeing. And I think that's the difference. So in a way, you could say the future has an ancient heart and we're going back to the pre-ATS recruitment days, mm-hmm. Job board days. But don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean, it's all good in the world of recruitment or talent acquisition. It's like, how does this change now? How do we use the AI human integration and make that to something that really works positively for candidates, hiring managers, and recruiters?
Okay, well, let's start with the hiring manager side or the TA side, because obviously we work with the recruitment industry, the agency side, and I think in order to understand how we should be developing our businesses, our strategies, we need to understand how the other side are going to react to what's going on as well. So talk to me through what you think is going to happen on the TA side. So the internal talent acquisition function, how's that going to change over the course of the next 12, 18 months or so?
Okay, but the one thing, all I'm saying is I think you can't just talk about TAE without talking about candidates.
Sure.
As
okay.
well, right. So okay. I think one of the key parts for me with recruitment is that if we just see it as a one-sided funnel mm-hmm. designed for the convenience of TA teams, then it fails, right? What we need to see it as two-sided marketplace where the candidate is as important as the hiring manager, and the recruiter in the middle or the TA team in the middle, they're the marketplace. They can make sure that the marketplace functions properly. What we've seen too often recently is that we have one funnel, one-sided convenience, and it doesn't work for candidates. It doesn't work for hiring managers. It might work for talent acquisition teams, and it might protect their jobs, but it certainly doesn't help companies get the candidates that they're looking for.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so for example, if I've been working with people who, from a sourcing perspective, have been just focused on very precise skills, and if the person didn't have everything on their CV, on their LinkedIn profile, they wouldn't even talk to this candidate. Whereby I think a lot of candidates don't have everything on their LinkedIn profile, and the job of the recruiter is do talk with candidates so that actually, do they have more skills? How could we fit them in? How do they fit for the role, and not just kind of try to hunt for the unicorns?
So because there's obviously a lot of talk about skills first hiring in comparison to everything else, experience, etc., and what's on a CV and education, etc. Is that going to become front of mind when it comes, whoever that is in that middle piece, playing that middle role?
I think you will see so much more. I mean, skill-based hiring is just one other iteration that we have seen over the years, right? So we'll still have experience, we'll still have schools, but I think we will see a different kind of. I think what Generative AI will allow us to do is to really introduce hiring managers and candidates that also fit together, be it from a cultural perspective, be it from an inclusivity perspective. All of this will come in there. So I believe there will be more, skills is important, but it's, we talked about football at the beginning, is it really, it's not only the skill, it's also how do you fit in the team, how do you make the team better? And I think that's the same with recruitment. So for me, talent acquisition recruitment was going to be bigger.
Yeah.
It's not just about, I've got a square to fill, where's the square that kind of plugs into it, and it's more like, okay, how does actually the team work out? Which ones are, where do I use Gen AI agents? Where do I use candidates? How do they all fit together? Can I maybe use 2 candidates for one role that the hiring manager wants? And really being like as it used to be, and that's why I said the future has an ancient heart, as it used to be when recruiters were really advisors to hiring managers with a real in-depth knowledge about the market, with in-depth knowledge of what's happening, with really good contacts and relationships with candidates and hiring managers, right? So I think they will see more of this again.
So this was a big debate that we had fairly recently. There's a couple of things that you mentioned, actually, we've been debating fairly recently at some recruitment leader sort of meetups. And that piece around a recruiter being more of an advisor, consultative, giving market insights, information. There was a question mark that came up, and I'm fascinated by this because on one side, I totally agree with you. We talk a lot about a recruitment consultant, consult with your customers, consult with your marketplace. And yet, if you think about it now, I've probably got more access to market information than I've ever had before. I can, plug it into ChatGPT. I can build some agents who can do that for me, who in many cases will probably know more about the market than some recruiters necessarily will know, because maybe just through experience. I can build an agent that can look back over the last 20 years worth of data and analyze it for me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas a 23-year-old recruiter may only have 3 or 4 years experience. So therefore, are we losing that USP of our ability to consult, or is it a different type of consultancy?
I think, it's always easy to get volume of data.
Yeah.
Right? But it's what you do with the data. So for me, it's always about the so what. So what does it mean, this data, for me as a hiring manager? What does it mean for me as a candidate? How do I bring those two things together? What does it mean for a recruiter? Now, yes, you can get all of this data, but that doesn't mean that I know what the so what is. And this is, I think, where the real experience comes in, and also the understanding of, I think, the person on the other side, right? So if, let's say, I would be hiring for you, if I know what kind of person you are, how your company works, I might see which candidates actually fit in there. They might have all the same skills, but could they actually thrive in your role? Yeah. Right. It's again with this football. There's loads of right backs, but which one is the one that really will replace Trent Alexander? It will be interesting to see. Okay, so there's another piece of this which is around
Actually, well, let me go back to that in 1 second, because if we look at the classic recruitment marketplace, and we've rolled out a program recently called the Future Fit program, which is trying to understand all of the skills that a recruiter of tomorrow will need in order to be able to be super effective, hyper effective in their job. And some of those skills I question whether exist today. So we've got a lot of recruiters in our industry who don't necessarily have the skills they're going to need in tomorrow's market. And that's why I think a lot of recruiters are struggling at the moment, or have been struggling, because the market shifted. We are grappling with bringing in AI and automations, et cetera, into our business while this market shift is going on. And then you've got recruiters trying to transact in the traditional way, and it's just not all clicking together for some reason. Is that something we're going to have to really think about as an industry, about upskilling, redeploying our recruiters to have the right skill set to be able to transact with an AI business model sitting around them, or a framework around them?
I'm a little bit, when I think about upskilling, I think give them access to generative AI and let them play.
Okay, fine.
Because I think the real innovation happens when people use it when they do with work, right? When they work and they do it, because no central planner will understand, what would be best for a recruiter to know. We don't know yet. And that's the beauty. It's so different, like when social media came about and everybody said, oh, nobody's allowed to use Twitter, right? And you needed to write all of these social media, or sign all of these social media policies.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about this anymore. Nobody thought like, I let my recruiters speak with candidates and hiring managers on the phone, but I don't allow them to tweet, right? And it's the same with generative AI. Don't restrict people. Let them play, right? Let them innovate, because we don't know it yet. And I think the role for the manager or the owner is really to kind of give them the space and let them, in a way, use the, how should I say that? It shouldn't matter or encourage people to experiment, right? So often people don't experiment because they're afraid that if it fails, it's negative for them. But I think we need to encourage this experimentation.
But it's a huge distraction.
It isn't. I don't think it is. So for example, at CLO, we've just launched a CLO AI workspace that we just started rolling out to our people. And what we actually see is it's not a distraction. People love it, right? People are so ready. It's a hotbed of innovation. People are on this. People are finding ways of how they become more productive. You also see an incredible innovation, cross, functional innovation, and people helping each other. It's phenomenal to see. And it's not a distraction if it hangs with their work, because they suddenly find something saying, oh, I can be 7% more productive if I do something like this, and they're testing it. And that means you as a manager, or as the one responsible for innovation, you can look at this and saying, actually, what works, right? What can people do? I don't think it's a distraction at all. What we see at the moment is like it benefits people, and the energy is significant.
Yeah.
I think on the other side, I think it's more where the leadership needs to really think about, well, what will the vision look like for the future? If I have recruiters and I still measure their KPIs against being a human robot, you need to kind of find so many candidates on LinkedIn and send them an email and do this and do this and do this and do this. They're not going to change their behavior. So the question is like, how do you change your process? How do you change the roles that people do? And then you bring in the technology. But in recruitment, we always talk about people, process, and technology.
Yeah.
Technology comes as the third point, and there's a reason for it, because it's first about people, process, and technology. And that's where I think we as an industry are challenged in saying, okay, what's the process going to be like?
Yeah.
For example, in my view, no recruiter should ever do any sourcing anymore. Right? If you go to LinkedIn or into any database and you do manual Boolean searching, forget it. Don't do this. Right? You're working like a robot, and there's robots who are better than you.
Yeah.
This is about using so at Cielo again, our sources don't do that anymore. Our sources are now there to engage with candidates, right, at the start of the journey.
Yeah, and this is interesting, and this is why my point about it being a distraction. It is a distraction because they're not doing that process bit first. What they're doing is they're going to an event, they're seeing lots of shiny new tools, they're going, well, these are all AI tools, supposedly, most of them aren't AI. AI tools, then they all buy them, they all download them, they're all £49.99 a month, and they've got 30 different tools that they're not using, and they're all over the place, and they're getting lost on these journeys. So I think maybe that distraction piece is coming from the fact there is no process that sits behind this.
Okay, fair point, right? So yes, you have. I can see what you're saying. So you need to have a certain guardrails, but I'm saying within these avenues you work. Now, I agree with you, and I think it's a big problem that we're currently having, that we have a lot of new vendors coming up who are, they're like digital snake oil salesmen. They're just selling us stuff in the hope that it fixes everything, right? And they might have never recruited anything in the world, but they clearly also their promise is to replace all human judgment when we actually need more of it. The second problem that you have is you have a lot of people, the existing vendors, they try to stay relevant, so they sprinkle some AI terminology over the thing. So, but that's no different than adding, like putting a digital lipstick on a industrial age pig. And you could see this also with social media again, right? When people just put like a little share button from Twitter and saying we're social media, right? And this is what you see again. The third thing that I think that is really difficult at the moment, you have a lot of advisors and consultants who are just charlatans. They don't know, they haven't built a generative AI, but they're creating confusion to make money, right? So I think from a talent acquisition leader perspective, I would say, okay, you know what you want to do. Let your, put some guardrails in, and then let your people innovate and trial and experiment, because you don't yet know what works and what doesn't work, right? That doesn't mean that you say like, okay, you don't need to hit your targets. You still hit your targets, but how can you use generative AI to help you? And don't buy just in technology. Don't just bring in some consultants who says, oh, that's what you need to do. They don't have any clue. They don't have a clue either.
Could you, if you had a recruitment business, 20 staff, 20 consultants, would you make all 20 of your consultants AI literate and gave them time to play and innovate with AI every day? Or would you bring in a person whose job is to build an AI enterprise strategy across the company on behalf of the recruiters? I
think I do both.
Okay.
Right, so you want to bring somebody in, or look, business isn't so difficult, right? It's like solve my problem and make me feel good. So we know what the problems are for hiring managers. We know what the problems are for candidates. Yeah. So it's like, how do we make this a more,
Do we know what the problems are for hiring managers? Because I'm not sure a lot of hiring managers actually know what their problems are at the moment. They are confused.
Okay, but I think we know it more so, and we can help them find what they're looking for, or or we can help them find out what they're looking for. But I think I would let everybody play, because relatively quickly you find you don't know who takes to Gen AI and who doesn't, right? And you relatively quickly will see the people who want to get involved. Some people will just try a little bit with it. Other people really love it, and they start building their first agents, and they will be the ones that kind of bring all of the excitement into the company. At the same time, you also then have to kind of maybe not bring somebody in, but kind of think as a leadership team, what's our vision for the future, right? Yeah. How do we keep recruitment relevant? How do we amplify it instead of, that's the key thing for me.
Okay, so we're talking a lot about internal processes, so efficiency, productivity, that sort of, and that's how a lot of people see AI and automations. It makes me 10 times more efficient, more productive, etc. There is that piece on the outside, though, which is the user experience that you touched on before, so the candidate experience. And we were debating recently about, if you look at how my relationship with my bank, how do I want to transact with my bank? I don't want to speak to someone in my bank. I've got no interest in doing that. So what I'd rather do is, if I need to make a bank transaction or do some exchange or whatever, I'd rather do that on my phone in front of the television without even thinking about it, without talking to anyone. However, if I want to speak to someone, I can. I've got a number I can call, and I know there'll be someone at the end of the line. Is that the sort of relationship a candidate will want to have with a recruitment company moving forward? I don't actually want to speak to a recruiter every day. I just want I want to trust that you're going to be brilliant at doing the thing I need you to do. Or do they want to have more of that human relationship?
Before I answer that question, you said something at the beginning about efficiency, right? Okay. And I think this is where we are as an industry are at a crossroad at the moment. You can either see some people who are just looking at efficiencies, and it's ultimately they see AI and automation as a replacement of humans.
Yeah.
but it's a broken process. And if you do a replacement, that leads to more dehumanization, more industrialization, more processes.
You're amplifying the same
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Then the other part is like, actually, how can we reimagine what recruitment is about? And how can we use generative AI to amplify the humanness for it, right?
Yep.
So I'm a firm believer that, and I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, that our most advanced technology that we have might make us more human than less, right? But that's what I believe. And this is what we can choose. And we need to decide as an industry, do we want to be just the more industrialization, or do we reimagine it? And do we have the courage to reimagine it? So that's the first thing that I do. To the other thing, how do candidates want to, and hiring managers in that regard, want to work with recruiters? I think it will be an interesting, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
My view is you don't want to force on candidates how they have to engage with you. You know, like I wouldn't force, if you want to, so for example, we've built a product, and as a candidate, you can either book an interview with a candidate, with a recruiter. You can apply straight away, because who am I to tell you that you need to speak with a recruiter if you think you can apply straight away, or you can speak with an AI recruiter straight away if you don't want to wait the time with it. And it's down to the candidates how they want it. And it's really interesting because it's kind of split in different ways, right? And that's my view. Don't force people and saying you need to do it, right? Like at the moment, obviously with banks, there's only one way of interacting with a bank, and maybe that gets to it. But at the moment, we don't know about it, and we're not. And recruitment isn't transactions. Recruitment is dealing with lives, right? This is much more like a luxury purchase if you change your job than it is about buying a pizza.
Well, it's the same as buying a house, right? If it was such a transactional thing, buying a house, then you wouldn't bother moving out of your seat. You sit at home and just watch videos all day long and put
exactly.
You still get off and do that. You have to go and speak to the estate agent. You have to go and look around yourself. You have to go and touch it, etc.
Yeah,
that bit I don't think is ever going to go away, whatever we try. So.
I think that's a really that's a great example or analogy of how we should see recruitment still developing.
Look at that. Recruiters like estate agents. I knew it happened. Back to the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Or at the same time, it's the same with hiring managers, right? So I can imagine a world where a hiring manager just interacts with an agent in Teams. But at some stage, I think, and it's the same time now when you kind of chat with, I don't mind chatting with an AI, like with Amazon or whatever, when I need something. But there comes a point where I might want to talk with a human, and then there's nothing more annoying if I can't.
Let's talk about a word that I think going to become an incredibly important word that's going to sit at the heart of all of this, which is trust. And if I just give you my explanation behind why I see that, if we look at it from a number of points of view, let's look at it from a sales perspective. Sales to me has always been about nurturing the relationship with a customer, building trust first, building rapport, and then earning the right for them to be able to sell to them. That's how I've always seen it. So, the idea of take someone who's completely cold and try and close a deal with them, it's a little bit archaic, I think. And it's more of a nurturing function we have to do. I don't think typically people will buy from you unless they trust you. But I think more so than ever before now in this current marketplace, that's really, really true. So there's trust from the buying side and the buyer relationship. We then got trust when it comes to the candidate relationship and how candidates, job seekers, how much do they trust the person or the technology or the bot or whatever that's going to be finding them this life-changing transformational job that's going to move them forward. And then you've got this bit in the middle of all this where I think every day we are reducing the amount of trust that is existing in the way that we work. So as an example, you've got fake profiles being created daily. You've got recruiters receiving 2,500, 3,000 CVs for one job that 2,500 of those CVs are not the right CVs. They're not real CVs. They've been AI generated. You've got no idea whether it's true or not. They've even got a really beautiful picture of them looking great in a business environment. They've never been in a business before because that's AI generated. So there's a real trust thing going on here, and I'm fascinated by this. So this is why when you talk about being human, I talk about you've got to get out more. You've got to go and see your customers more. You've got to speak to your candidates more because that's the only way they can trust you. If I'm looking at you in the whites of your eyes and going, actually, let's build a relationship and let's trust each other.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about the trust thing that's happening around here.
If we link trust back to some of the topics that we talked before about humanizing, but also like it being a luxury purchase if you hire somebody or if you change your job, right? So trust is becoming really, really important in in this instance. They don't need to become a best buddy, but I need to feel that they respect me and look after my best interests at my heart. So I do believe that is a key component and is a good word, trust. Now, I would caution that we say, with generative AI now we get all of these fake profiles. We had fake profiles all the time.
Sure.
Right? So this is just one way that we're having it. At the same time, you could also see a lot of applicants or candidates who apply and they never hear anything back, right? And they just go in a black hole. So this is why I'm saying recruitment at the moment is broken, right? Because it doesn't work for the recruiter, it doesn't work for the candidate, it doesn't work for the hiring manager. But now we have a chance to bring this together. And trust is a key component of this. At this heart, how can we make people trust us as talent acquisition people more so? And what you see at the moment, for example, with especially in graduate recruitment, where they know people use AI at the beginning, they encourage people to use AI, but right at the end, you have face-to-face interviews. Right. So I think face-to-face interview, assessment centers, all of this will become more important.
Interesting. Okay. And I don't know where this is all going, as you said at the beginning. We are literally walking in the unknown here to an extent. I suppose if you want to create first mover advantage, you've got to just try and figure out a pathway and just run with it and hope it's the right pathway to an extent. And I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do at TRN is identify what that pathway looks like and then help our members go on that journey. And I think we've done a good job of it to date, but I don't know where it's going next. And that's the reason why we're doing conversations like this at the moment. I think with your background, and we're interviewing lots of people around this subject and around the future of recruitment. And obviously your background is tech. Can I call you a techie? Would you call yourself a techie? Is that a compliment these days to call yourself a techie?
It's a compliment, but I also have to say that I actually don't code.
Okay, fine. So you're a non-coding techie. Well, we all are now. We can use AI. It's fine. It's not
exactly.
a problem at all. But let's get a little bit deeper into the technology side of the piece, because we are going to be interviewing some operators who probably don't have that technological experience, and they're trying to figure it out themselves with their strategies, and they're doing a good job of it, I think. But from a technology point of view, can you just help me understand, or help our audience understand more about how technology is going to evolve, do you think, based on what you're seeing? Because we've gone from a journey of automation suddenly became prevalent, even though they've been around for decades. Then we started talking about AI, and everyone thought they were building robots that are going to take over the world. Then they realized that's not actually the case. We're talking about agents, and then agentic AI. And I don't think we've even started on the journey yet. I think there's a few more transitions to come through in the next 6 months that are going to completely blow people away. What are you seeing, thinking? What's around the corner?
Well, first of all, I think as I said at the beginning, there's a lot of confusion about, agentic AI, for example, right? That so many people say that they have agentic AI, and there's only very few people in talent acquisition industry that actually have agentic AI capabilities. I think we will see a combination of automation and generative AI coming together. Which will allow us to have a much more personalized approach to every single candidate, and also much more personalized to myself. The key component that I think, it's easy to use in a large language model. We all heard about that they're hallucinating, right? And like you said, think I can type something in the large language model and it gives me information. Is that the right information or not, right? So it's one of the key components that I think we'll see going forwards much more, is the importance of data. Where do I, as a company, how is my own data structured? Can it be used? And we all sit on a lot of data, but it's often in Excel spreadsheets or wherever it is, and then it's not really usable by the generative AI. And I think that's something to think about. But then also, are there any other data that I want to buy in and link to my large language model so that I can ensure that it's not hallucinating so much? And so I think we see a combination of those. The other thing, obviously, with generative AI is it's not replicable. And every single time, if you type in one prompt, it gives you an answer. If you type in the same prompt, it gives you a different answer, right? Yeah. And this is, I think, it's much more like talking to a human.
A forgetful human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with no memory. But so you need to think about, how do I build my prompts, and therefore my agents, because they're ultimately driven by prompts and tools. How do I build my prompts so that I get a replicable way, somewhat replicable answer back.
Yeah.
Which data do I use? Which tools do I give the agents? So I think we'll see a lot of these developments, and I think it's going to go enormously fast, right? At the moment, we're thinking about, at the moment, large language models is predicting what's the next word that should be used in a sentence, but soon it will be what's the next action, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going outside of words, and obviously then we have videos and all of these other items that I think will, it's going to be a completely different world and completely fascinating.
You've used the word data a lot, and obviously we are all now using the word data a lot more than ever before.
Yes.
I've got two questions, and one I just wanted to write down. The first one was around LinkedIn, actually, and it's just I'm fascinated by the sort of future journey of where LinkedIn is going with all this, because LinkedIn is heavily reliant on data. It's a data business. It's heavily reliant on data, but that data is sort of put in by people, and it's hard to sort of validate that data to an extent. Mm-hmm. Is there a risk with some? And this is not knocking LinkedIn by any means, but looking at a data business like LinkedIn, which is all around self-updating data that I can now manipulate as much as I want. Is there a risk that the data that a company like LinkedIn will have will become less and less valid, less and less worthy? Or I presume they've got a plan around this. I think they would have thought this and asked this question themselves. But
yes.
I'm just fascinated by what's going to happen with that, because we've seen some organisations move away from LinkedIn because they want to use their own data because they can trust it more and it's cheaper and they've already got it. Some people are more reliant on LinkedIn than ever before. Some people are waiting for LinkedIn to make the next move, and they're going to basically that will be their strategy based on what LinkedIn tell you can do next with all this data. I'm intrigued by your sort of thoughts on that. That's my first data question. I've got a second one as well.
Okay, so specifically on, LinkedIn obviously is part of Microsoft.
Yep.
And you heard maybe about the skills agent that is coming out that kind of looks at internal data within a company and then LinkedIn data to kind of then assess what skills a company has within its universe. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I think, yes, you need to be obviously aware that what LinkedIn is, well, in a way, all data is a representation of reality through a specific lens, right? So there's no data that is neutral and perfect. Even if I go to a company website, well, that's written from a company perspective, right? So it's kind of like every data that we have, you want to have loads of different data points to triangulate it. But if I only have my LinkedIn profile on its own, it's not a good source. But if I have 1,000 LinkedIn profiles, now I can obviously use that to make much better data forecasts or data insights into my data. So I think it's less about what kind of data you have, and LinkedIn I think is so powerful when it comes to data, right? I think no recruitment business can get around LinkedIn at the moment. But I think it's what other data sets do you have, right? And how can you use the data sets that you have? So take LinkedIn, you have only very surface level data. So you only see my profile. Mm-hmm. But if I have applied for your role, so if you're ATS, actually I can see which kind of roles I've applied for. Yeah. So it sees already more, right? If a recruitment agency has placed me, they know how long I maybe have stayed with this kind of company, and they know some of my performance data. So it goes deeper into those sets. So I think it's for me, it's super interesting to see how many data points we actually have as talent acquisition teams.
Yeah.
That we don't use.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we get all of these applications coming in. Mm-hmm. Are we using them, or are we just kind of putting them into ATS and this is where they, die? And then at some stage, 5 years later, we go like, oh, we've got all of this information, but it's outdated.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, what are all of the different data points? What are the data points that I believe I should buy in because it gives you much more robust data? Mm-hmm. But again, for me, it's like you don't need to, start small, try a little bit, so that you experiment and see where the data brings you and where you find your holes, right? There's not a single company out there that has 100% of all of the data. And if you always wait until you get 100% of all of the data, you will wait forever. Yeah. Right? What we want is, it's like, Donald Rumsfeld said, you have your known knowns, your unknown knowns, your unknown unknowns, right? It's like, that's where you have to play in, right? So you need to be comfortable of playing in a gray area.
Then that segues into my next question around the data piece, because we look at people, we look at talents. They're not data, but they are data to an extent. So they're humans. Let's make that really, really clear, and we have to treat them accordingly. But there is data that sits behind them that allows us to be able to do that job effectively. To your point, we have so much data in a recruitment company, ridiculous amounts of data, even some of it's sentiment data from the conversations I'm having just when I'm interviewing or chatting to people about the market, how you're feeling, and that sort of stuff. That's that whole piece between the difference between, sort of, I suppose, having economists and social economists. You've got the economists look at the data, the social economists go, well, I'm feeling okay about that, but because of the data, I'm going to do that instead. That sentiment data is really important. So we as a recruitment businesses have ridiculous amounts of data. I don't think there are many recruitment companies who see themselves as data companies. They see themselves as recruitment companies doing talent acquisition and everything else. I think that's a really exciting future for a recruitment company when they can start thinking, behaving, acting, monetizing their data, etc. Having data analysts or maybe data analyst agents in play and that type of stuff. Do you see that too, or is that sort of being a bit far-fetched and moving away from their core business?
No, it isn't. For me, it's always the so what.
Yep.
Everybody has data, so what am I going to do with it? So would I think a recruitment agency becomes a data company? Maybe not. Would I see a recruitment agency being able to use their data to better outcomes? Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And yes, I think, people should be thinking about, what do they do with, should they bring in the data scientist? I think one of the key things at the moment is to think about what's your data strategy. And that sounds grand, but it's like, where is your data?
Yeah.
How can you access your data? If you have still people having Excel spreadsheets filling stuff out, don't do it, right? But even if it's in your ATS and in your CRM and in your finance system and here and here and here, so you have them all in silos, but you want to get all of this data into one place so that the AI can access it.
Yeah.
And then there's the question also, like, how do I have to change the data that the AI can read it? So if I have images embedded into a PowerPoint, it's better. Where's the raw data?
Yep.
Right. AI wants raw data. That's what it thrives on.
Yeah.
And that's what I would. That's what I would be thinking about. Let your people play and encourage them to experiment. Sort out your data, and then have a lot of fun.
Have a lot of fun. I can imagine what your office is like. It's just hilarious. All these people just building stuff and playing with stuff, and it is quite grandiose. I mean, I've just built a data center at the Recruitment Network, which makes me sound so clever and intelligent, and I'm really not at all. But what I've been able to do is using some automation tools and using some AI tools, basically create and pull all the sentiment data that we have across literally thousands of conversations we have every day across the TRN, all the WhatsApp conversations, all the CEO peer groups, all the one-to-ones, all that data now is being pulled into a data center that we've built and then can now be channeled through AI, and I can use it in a million different ways. And it's so exciting. It's unbelievable. And I call it my data center. It's like a little box we created, that sort of thing. It is what it is. But it is exciting.
Under your desk.
Under my desk. Always under there, next to the rum. Let's fast forward now to outside of recruitment, to outside of our companies, looking outside. There was obviously fairly recently the announcement of Adecco and Salesforce coming together to basically, the way I summarize it to people is, we're now going to start placing AI agents at the same time as placing humans next to each other, basically. So come to us, come to our business, this joint venture that we built, and we can start doing that. Is that something that you see more and more of? I know it was... I always forget the guy's name. They were talking a lot about, we're in a world where in 2025 we will see an org chart of a recruitment company. We'll have an AI agent in the org chart. We'll be sitting figuratively alongside next to people or next to agents within our businesses. And I think people have got a bit of a fear there's going to be literally a robot next to them.
Yeah.
It's not a robot, but that sort of
Terminator.
That's exactly that sort of concept. So is that? Do you see that as part of a recruitment agency's job now, is placing AI agents on contract with their customers alongside a candidate? Because that's what we're seeing in theory. So
let's just say at the moment, I mean, I've seen I read the press release. It's a press release.
Yeah.
But yes, we work with clients that already start kind of building org charts where they have, I have 2 humans and 5 agents in there. And that's exactly the technology that we built, right? So we built, for example, an entire 11 different agents that can build recruitment marketing campaigns from building your EVP to activating it to measuring it and being always on in every single language.
Yeah.
So suddenly you might only need currently have 2 people in your employer brand business, and it feels like you have another 7 people working for you. So definitely that's going to happen. The interesting bit for me is you will have task specific agents, right? So agents that do specific tasks. So that's what we're seeing at the moment. So the task could be, I'm very good at summarizing, right? So you have task specific agents and you have role specific agents, like a recruiter. I think we'll take it as a little while to get to the role specific one. We'll have more task specific agents. So what I see is I guess it's difficult for a recruitment agency to, unless they build their own agents that are then built in a way that they can be docked into the infrastructure of their clients, it will be very difficult for them to place it.
Which is presumably the reason why a Decade partnered with Salesforce.
Oh, exactly.
I think,
And then, however, I think as a recruiter, you need to be aware of saying, okay, do you need to hire a person for this, or can you make it more productive?
Yeah.
So I believe, and I think somebody said it, but also my view is before you hire anybody else, just have a look at, have you checked out all of the productivity enhancements that you can make using generative AI? Only then should you sign off a new hire. Right? So that's the way of thinking about it. But I don't think that anybody yet knows precisely how it's going to work out. But there are certain tools, certainly, like I said, right? So if you break down what a sourcer does, they're not going to go through LinkedIn anymore and all of the databases. That's all being done by an AI. The AI the candidate can now speak with an AI, right? And you can do all of the pre-screening. So all of these tasks can now be done by AI. So why would I hire 20 sources when in a way I just need 5? Because their role is now different because certain tasks are being done by an agent.
And they're just doing the human bit at the end of it. Yeah.
And this goes back to the, people, process, and technology. What is it that you want everybody to do? And I think this is where, when we go back to recruiters being consultants and understanding this is what I would expect a great recruiter does, right? They come in and say, okay, have you thought about, do you need to really hire another data scientist?
Yeah.
Or could you use those kind of pieces?
I had a load of questions I was going to ask you. I'm not sure if we've touched on any of them yet at all, and I'm not really interested in them now. So because it's been far too interesting, and I just find this fascinating. I'm always trying to work out whether I'm excited or nervous about this. I think I'm nervously excited, if I can use that, and that's sitting on the fence hugely, right? But I'm an eternal optimist. I always have been, always will be. So I don't feel negativity or pessimism. It's not in my DNA. I just like to think there must be something really cool coming out of this, and there must be an opportunity.
Absolutely.
But it is quite nerve-wracking for some people to listen to this. Either people in the recruitment sector or just people just generally going, this is a very, very different world that we're embarking in at the moment. Is there a reason for people to be fearful, or should we just go, let's just go with it, let's just play, let's just go and build, let's go and innovate, see what comes out the other side?
Look, I think I'm with you, right? It's like when you go on a roller coaster ride, you're kind of nervous, but you're excited, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. I'm kind of, and like you, I'm an optimist about it. I think it's going to be great. What's not to love about it?
Yeah.
Even if people say, we don't have any jobs anymore, we'll have robots doing all of the jobs. Okay, that's great as well, right? Have we really been put on this world just to do jobs? Or I have hundreds of things.
We've all gone on holiday.
Well, I have hundreds of things. I can visit Paul in Dubai, or all sorts of other things that I have in my mind that I don't need to do jobs. But I think I understand why people feel nervous about it, right? I understand why people feel threatened by it. And, when I think about my kids, I think about, what world are they going to go into?
Yep.
But my belief is I can now either, if I'm afraid, I sit back and I go, I can't do anything about it. It's all bad. Or I just want everything to be stopped.
Yep.
And it's not going to stop, right? It's not going to stop. So now it's like, okay, I can either go along with the ride and try to, in my own little small ways that I have, to shape the world in the way that I want it to be. or not. And that's why I'm saying, we as an industry have the chance. We can say either more industrialization and replacement of humans, or we are really rethinking what recruitment is about and reimagining it and have the courage to do this. And we're amplifying it. And we see that actually competitive advantage isn't better AI. It is not more skilled recruiters. It is the better integration of, human expertise with AI intelligence. That's what it's about. And that's what I get up for in the morning.
Fantastic. I'm going to stop there because that's a perfect way to end. So, Felix, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Whether you're an Arsenal fan, Liverpool fan, whatever you are, Pompey, that sort of stuff, we're all in the same boat together.
Yeah.
we're all in the same division trying to get through. So, no, but I think this has been fascinating. And as I said, there's a lot of questions here that we haven't touched on because actually a lot of this is unknown, but it's up to us to figure out the way, or even it's not up to us to figure out the way. It's up to us to create the future as much as it is just to wait for the future to happen. And I think that's a big part of what we do at TRN is try and bring recruitment organizations, the industry together, the community together, members together to say, actually, let's not just wait to figure out or wait for someone to tell us. Let's go and take what we've got and build something and build the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and how often, we had it a couple of times in our lifetime, but how often do you get really into a position where the world is changing to such an extent? Isn't it exciting? And we now can be part of this journey. It's not that we're kind of just, at the end of it, and we can't do anything. So I, encourage everybody, just get involved and keep a positive and play. Absolutely, playing is the most important thing in life.
Fantastic, excellent, Felix.
Okay.
Thank you. Spot on, brilliant. And that's a wrap for this episode of the TRN podcast. Thank you for listening, and make sure you grab the free episode toolkit. All the links are in the description, and click follow in your podcast app so you can get notified of our next episode. If you want to get more out of your business and your people, then please unlock 30 days from our platform, TRN World, for free. And help yourself to all our training content, our guides, our templates, and peer insights. You can get started at trnworld.com/trial. And finally, if you found this episode of the TRN podcast of use, please share it with your network and tag TRN on any socials with your takeaways. Otherwise, message us directly if we can help in any way. We do reply to every question. Otherwise, we'll see you next week on the next TRN podcast.